Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. And yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creatives, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Melissa, and this week I am super excited because I feel like I'm talking to my people. My guest today is self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur, Steph Todd. Welcome to the podcast, Steph.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I am really excited to have you. I think we have a lot in common, and this is going to be a really fun episode. But before we dive in, let's get to know Steph a little bit better. If you are somebody who enjoys prepping meals or planning meals for your family, you may know Steph as the creator of the website planaddict.com, which she started back in 2016 as a hobby, but has since become a full-time endeavor. But that is not all that she does. She is also a franchisee owner. She started a boutique consulting firm, and most recently she started an urban veggie farm company. So we have a lot to talk about, like I already mentioned. And you might be surprised. We're going to talk a little bit more about her background in a minute, but Stephanie actually comes from the medical field. She has a bachelor's degree in neuroscience and a master's degree in biomedical technology. And she worked as a project manager for several years, and I am sure that contributes to her ability to run 4 businesses simultaneously. She lives in Airdrie, Alberta with her family. Let's dive in today. So, Stephanie, the first question I ask everybody who comes on the podcast, and there's no right or wrong answer to this, is did you consider yourself creative when you were a kid?
I am an only child that is a product of the 80s and early 90s without the internet. So I think by circumstance, I was forced to be creative, spending a lot of time at home without siblings. So I did do a lot of creative things and was even dreaming about starting different types of businesses for as long as I can remember. So I would say that as a child, I was definitely very creative and I could never really see myself in one of those kind of classic careers. And so I knew from an early age that doing something creative was probably where I would end up. It just took me at least 10 years to build up the confidence to do it.
I think that's true for all of us. I certainly remember back when I was in school, I was definitely a creative kid, but my parents were always like, get an education in something that you can earn a living at, and then you can go do whatever you want. So
yeah, that's exactly the same as my parents.
I think that's a very Gen X parental type thing. So what led you into going into the medical field? Because I don't think a lot of people would connect creativity with neuroscience or biomedical technology.
Yeah. So I spent most of my undergraduate kind of career in research. So thinking about ways to make life in medicine, particularly in the world of neuro and traumatic brain injury and stroke, better. So how to create new technologies, how to create new therapies. And so it actually was creative and cutting edge. And I worked under some amazing scientists. And really, I think that whole process of working in science and medicine really gave me the foundation and the structure to really question everything and research everything and become an independent thinker and give me the confidence to think outside the box. And I was just always surrounded by that type of person.
I think that's one of the benefits of a university or an academic background to a certain extent that people overlook, is that certain fields where research is really key really prepare you in so many ways for being an entrepreneur. Is you learn how to ask all the questions, and you learn how to do all the due diligence, and it's sort of an overlooked skill that you get out of university. It's not something you really get in high school, I don't think.
No, and specifically being in the medical research lane, you go through a lot. You get a thick skin because you're constantly trying to publish your work, and it's constantly being critiqued. Your ideas are constantly being questioned. You get some really harsh feedback. And you just basically learn to fail and keep going, because for every 10 ideas you have, one never even only one will make it past an idea. Right. So I really do feel like that foundation was not for nothing.
No.
It definitely provided the path to where I am today.
And you said something so key there, learning to fail. Like that is a
absolutely.
skill we need to learn as adults. Well, we should learn it as kids, really. So how long did you spend working in the medical field? Because I think I don't know what you did as a project manager. I know It was in healthcare, but...
Yeah, so I started my career in the medical field when I was 21, and I was a research assistant in critical care, ICU, so that's intensive care units. And I specifically worked with a brilliant physician who was studying different ways to help people recover from very traumatic brain injuries and other neurological conditions. So these are patients who are in the ICU, usually in induced comas, and we were trying to come up with ways to change the standard of care to lead to better outcomes for these individuals. So I did that for about 5 years. And during that time is when I also did my master's degree, which was partially done within the intensive care unit. I also worked for a startup biotech company during that time that was working on therapies to regrow brain cells in stroke and brain injured patients. So my first experience with a startup was actually when I was 22, 23, and I got to see what the world of, starting a company from scratch looked like. From there, what did I do after that? I joined the Alberta Bone and Joint Health Institute as a project manager, working on creating a computer program to help healthcare administrators predict resources, beds, and it was in the area of hip and knee replacements. So the ultimate goal there was to be able to plan and reduce wait times for hip and knee replacements in Alberta. And then I went and had a baby. So I took a whopping 7 months off. Thankfully, my mother is so supportive, and she retired at the time. And so she helped with the child rearing side of things, and I joined a healthcare consulting company and was farmed out, I guess. I don't know. I was a contractor.
Right.
So I was farmed out to build a new hospital here in Calgary. So it was a 1.3 million square foot hospital, and I was the project manager for the surgical suites, so operating rooms and basically any part of the hospital that touches a surgical patient. Wow. So that was a massive project, and probably to date one of the most proud things I ever accomplished. And then from there, I live in Alberta, so I took a little sidestep and was a project manager in the oil and gas industry for about 2 years, maybe it was 3, I can't remember actually. So I think that was actually a really amazing move, because it pulled me so far out of my comfort zone, and I learned more about myself and more about things that I was not comfortable with. So I did that, and then I spent the last 4 years of my quote unquote, desk job career at a nonprofit that worked in the area of autism. So did a lot of work with some government funded programs to help adults with autism. And then at the end of 2019, I was finally ready. So I had spent the last 2 or 3 years kind of slowly stepping back from my day job, as opposed to leaning in, quote unquote. So that job was actually incredibly supportive of seeing my longer term future and where I wanted to be. And so I started at 4 days a week, scaled back to 3 days a week, and then finally left completely. So that's kind of in a nutshell. as short as I can make it.
Oh, that's so interesting. My dad is a traumatic brain injury survivor, and so
No way.
10 years ago. Oh, no, yeah, almost 11. So yeah, I'm fascinated by all that.
Well, that's a conversation for another
Yeah, it's a
day,
whole
for
other
sure.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And that's stuff I'm still very passionate about. And so any charity work or any volunteering I do, I try and align with neurological conditions. And my daughter actually too, when she was 13 months old, was diagnosed with a neurological condition called Curare malformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's basically a abnormal bone growth at the base of your skull, and required neurosurgery, which she ended up not having. But we spent a lot of time with the neuro people at the Alberta Children's Hospital. So again, I think that those early experiences in my career braced me for what life had to give me.
It's funny when you look back how everything sort of leads you in the right direction, in the direction you're meant to go.
Absolutely.
So how did you go from a very successful career as in project management in healthcare to jumping to entrepreneurship? Because I know there's a little bit of a story there as well. When was your first foray into I guess your first business? Or did you have one as a kid? Were you like out selling cookies or?
No, I don't think I had one as a kid, but my dad is a serial entrepreneur.
Ah, okay.
And so I was just always exposed to it.
Right.
So he would start a company, build it, sell it, start a new one, build it, sell it, start a new one. And so the concept of entrepreneurship and working for yourself was not foreign to me. Whereas my mom is in accounting and stayed at the same company in oil and gas for 25 years. So I really did grow up in a household where I saw both options. And it was just, no, I never had one as a child. And how I ended up in this world was during I think it was my hospital building days. I was commuting about 2 hours a day. I had a 7-month, maybe 9-month-old, anyway, under a year-old baby.
Right.
And I just had to learn to become efficient to survive.
Yes.
Like I had to. We did have help. Like I did in that time in my life, did have consistent house cleaners. And at one point we even had somebody like cooking for us. But I learned about meal planning and meal prepping, and it saved my sanity. It made me more organized. It became a form of self-care to get ready for my week. It made me calm. It had so many positive benefits that I had to start telling my friends about it. I was like, if you're not meal planning, like you have to do this. This is like life changing, and my life is so much easier with it. So then I started a Facebook group for people who are just interested in learning a little bit more about it, becoming more organized. And the Facebook just grew. I think it grew by 2,000 people in the first 3 days. It was, oh, wow. It was crazy. Yeah. I had no idea. And so a lot of the questions that got asked in there, I was answering. And then my husband actually bought me the domain name, and I didn't even know what to do with it. He's just like, you need a space for this. You need something that's your own. You can't just have all this on Facebook. So it became a hobby. It was something I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to build my own website. I'm going to learn. And I did. And I was so proud. And to this day, the website as it is today is me. Like I didn't have anyone build it for me.
Oh, wow.
I learned it all myself. And so this hobby just became so fun. And so at the time I started the blog, I had an iPhone and just the desire to teach other people what I had learned because I just found it so beneficial. So then I created the blog and slowly started connecting with other bloggers who I like to call like OG bloggers, who are like 10 years ahead of me. And, so many of them I'm so grateful for this day that just gave me the confidence that said, like you could do this full time. You should do this full time. And then at work, my boss was just kept saying, you are so passionate about your hobby. Like, is there a way that you can turn this into a job? She's also very entrepreneurial, so that helped. And yeah, I just learned about the world of blogging. I spent hours and hours and hours learning how to monetize a blog. How could it be a business? And it morphed into a business. I mean, we all know blogs take a bit of time to generate income. So it was about 2, maybe 3 years before it generated any income whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then the light switch happened one day. I was driving to work. I had a really long commute. I live in the suburbs outside of Calgary. And this is when the Instant Pot had just kind of come out, and I was an early adopter, and I was really excited. And I was getting so many questions about how long to cook this and how long to cook this. And I was like, okay, there's got to be a solution to this, because just Googling it is not something people want to do. And so I said, I'm going to come up with a cheat sheet. I think I'll just, make it a free printable, and I'm going to come up with a cheat sheet. And I got home and I was looking at my Instant Pot, and it just clicked that it's magnetic. So why don't I create a magnet that sticks on it, so it's easy for people to see and have access to, and I'll sell those. It'll be a fun little side thing. Well, tens of thousands of dollars later, and I had shipped one to every state, province, territory in North America. I was like, well, that's more than a side hustle. And that just kind of sparked me into thinking, what other problems can I solve? How else can I create things to help people in this niche? And then it just snowballed from there.
Yes, I think that was around the time that I first connected with you, because I remember hearing your story about the Instant Pot magnet, and I was just like, that is brilliant. Like that was when I knew, like, this is a different type of blogger. I think there are bloggers who really just want to blog. They want to write. Totally cool. And you can absolutely earn a living that way. But every now and then I come across a blogger who is thinking differently. Like they're just, and like you said, and I think this is why I think entrepreneurism is so creative, because entrepreneurs are constantly finding problems and figuring out solutions for them. And that's what creativity is in my book. It's just, I got a problem, I need to figure it out. I'll come up with a solution. So I was just fascinated by this, and I think you just hit the market with it at the right time. The Instant Pot was just taking off, and here was this. I mean, it's such a simple little thing. Like, it wasn't a big, complicated thing. It's a magnet with some times on it, and I just thought that was brilliant. So, how did you go about? I mean, you've sold a lot of these. Do you have a number on how many you've sold? I'm hitting you out of the blue with that. So
yeah, no, I'd have to go look. But I sell it for $7, and it has generated, and I'm totally comfortable sharing these numbers. It's generated about $25,000 in revenue.
So that's a lot.
And I only sold it 2 or 3 times a year, because it was so labor intensive to sell a physical product, and I wasn't equipped to do it constantly, because I still worked. And so I would just release it 2 or 3 times a year, do a whole bunch of trips to the post office, and be done with it. So I probably could have, in hindsight, I learned a lot from that experience. And so now going forward as an entrepreneur, I have a few tricks and a few different things I would do different.
So how did you market the magnet? Was it strictly to your Facebook group at that point, or was your blog generating enough traffic that, like, because I'm really curious, that's a lot of magnets at that price point and that kind of revenue. So how did all these people find you?
So I think what had happened was I created this Facebook community, and that's the thing, like, I created a community that trusted me. So even though Google says, cook this for this time or do this, people didn't trust Google. They wanted to hear from me because they trust me. And then it just became word of mouth. I didn't do any ads. I didn't do, I don't utilize an email list. I know it's horrible. I'm the worst. It's on my list for 2021. I have one, but I don't utilize it enough. in word of mouth. And I am so lucky to live where I live. It's such a entrepreneur friendly city that I live in. And friends that had stores would let me put them in their stores. They would talk about them to their customers, and it just word of mouth. Honestly, that's probably word of mouth. And
Yeah.
then once I built an Instagram following, then I could promote them on Instagram. So that's it, really.
Yeah, you touched on another one of my favorite things, and that is community. And I think that's something, Heather and I talk about this all the time on the podcast. It really is your community and your relationships. Like that's the core at the root level of everything that you do in a business. And I think a lot of people sort of skip that step. But if you have a community that trusts you, that is gold. Like
Absolutely.
just gold. But going through the process of creating a physical product, because I think that's something that scares people to death.
And it should.
And I mean, you had a relatively easy product because it was a magnet.
Oh.
It wasn't something you had to box up and pay $15 for shipping. And,
Exactly.
Right. So, but how did you go about sourcing it? We don't need to get like into the nitty gritty, but what were the basic, once you got the idea, where did you go?
Yeah. So, I remembered that I had lots of save the date wedding magnets on my fridge. And I remembered looking at it being like, I need it to be that size. So I went and asked my friends where they got it printed. And they told me, and I uploaded it and created it, ordered a few samples, and I was like, yep, this will work. And then I remember the first time I had ordered like 200, thinking, yes. I don't even know if I'll sell these 200. And I remember when you buy smaller volumes of things, it's a lot more expensive. Right. And I remember being like, oh, there isn't really margin on this. But whatever, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And that's part of being an entrepreneur. And you just got to do it. You just got to do it. It might not be perfect. It might not be what you're thinking. So did it. And those 200 magnets, I think, sold in the first 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay, I have something here. So then I used those profits to buy more. And then anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, that's how I figure most things out in what I'm doing is I just talk to people.
Yeah.
I talk to people who have done it. I've talked to people who have been doing things longer than me, and my relationships and friendships that I've built with other business owners are priceless.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So you did it all locally to you. You didn't outsource it overseas or anything. Okay.
Printed in Canada.
Kudos to you. That's next on my list of things to do. I'm working on my first physical product that I don't make myself. Like everything that I do sell, I make in my studio, but I'm working on my first one that I'm going to
congrats.
Have made. Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, if you want to have a conversation about that, we can have an offline conversation.
We totally can. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm at that exact same phase right now. I'm like, I can order 50 of these. That's the smallest quantity I can order. And that seems like a lot of money. And but I have to do it. So I'm not going to know if I don't try.
Exactly. And if it doesn't work, then my mentality was, okay, I'm out, however hundreds of dollars that I spent, and it's a lesson learned, and I'll move on and not dwell on it and feel like I'm a failure. Like I went into it going, this is 50-50.
Yeah.
And the financial risk was low enough that I was okay with it. I mean, of course, if you're entering some sort of venture that's, hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're going to give it a little bit more thought. But for me, the risk was so low that I was like,
yeah,
I might just give them as Christmas presents.
That's exactly what I said to a friend. Is it's like, you know what? I think it's super cute, and if nobody buys them, I'll use them, and I'll just give them away as Christmas presents.
Yeah, and you learn so much going through that process that maybe that wasn't the product that will be your bestseller, but maybe in 2 years from now you come up with something even better, and then you've gone through the experience of learning how to produce it and maybe warehouse it and distribute it. And I learned more about supply chain from a silly magnet than I ever did in any of my business classes I took.
A magnet doesn't take up a lot of space, right?
Exactly.
You can store it in your house. I mean, yes, you're gonna have boxes of them, but it's not
100%. But when they get delivered by the thousands, they're really heavy.
Yeah, magnets are heavy, yes.
Yeah, and they get stuck to the inside of mailboxes, I learned. So just the customer service around it.
Oh, wow, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, they get stuck to mailboxes, and so a lot of people don't get them, and then I have to resend them, and that's also why I just batch sell them, so that
Yeah.
I can let go of something else that's taking my time for that short period of time and deal with that, and then those stop being sold, I focus on something else, because I can't do it all the time.
Yeah, that's another
You
thing
just can't.
I'm thinking about right now is instead of having a shop that's open all year long, is just having quarterly seasonal launches, and when it's done, it's
Yep.
done, and then I have a couple of months to work on new product or work on something else and not worry about having to do all the customer service side of it. That's one of the ways that you can do it, and I think that's something people don't necessarily know about having a product-based business, is that there's not just one right way to do it. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it, and a lot of different selling models as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I've gone down the Amazon path and learned a ton of
Oh yeah,
lessons
that's
warehousing in Amazon.
a whole other that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. Yes, I'm taking a fantastic program right now called Multi-Stream Machine by the women who do the Product Boss podcast, and I'm learning a ton about different wholesale options in Amazon, and like it's for people who want to go past just having one place that they sell. They want to start reaching out. So it's been super interesting. Do you still sell the magnet, or has it been retired?
No, I retired it. As much as, yeah, it's just, things have a season in your
Yeah,
life.
absolutely.
And like you said, like that was just a perfect storm of great timing. And I get requests for it now and again, but I think I'll just do some giveaways on social media. And I do have a couple hundred still here in my house. But yeah, I really felt that season was over, and I really wanted to focus on other products. And so I wanted to focus my attention on more digital products. It is what it is. I know I could probably put it in Amazon and sell it year round, but it just doesn't, it's just not where my heart is, and it's just not what I want to do right now.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to remove things so you get that headspace back that it takes up.
Yeah, like I always say, like saying no to one thing is basically saying yes to a whole bunch of other things.
Exactly.
And so, and I may come back to it. Yeah, it's just not the season I'm in right now.
So tell us a little bit about your other ventures, because
Sure.
since leaving your job, you have started a few different things.
Yeah, and so I'll be very transparent that it's not just like I'm one person doing all of these things.
Well, that was going to be one of my next questions.
Yeah. So I have also learned that leveraging people who know things that you don't is really important, and partnering with them. So all of the other ventures that I'm part of are partnerships.
Okay.
Meal Plan Addict is the only thing that is mine and all mine, and I do have contract support to help me with specific tasks, but the vision, the strategy, everything is all mine. The other endeavors, so one is a frozen yogurt robot franchise, is a partnership. There's actually 6 of us that are involved in that, and so what I bring to the table in that endeavor is the marketing side, the relationships with finding locations, specifically because we're now trying to move it into Airdrie. But the other partners, bring the technical expertise, because we have to fix this thing all the time. And the time, like, so for example, my sister-in-law is involved in this, and she's stay-at-home mom and was trying to find something that she wanted to get into, so she was doing a lot of the maintenance and upkeep, and someone else was doing the ordering. So yeah, I'm part of it, but it's not a one person show, and I leverage what I'm good at, and other people are managing the stuff that they're good at. Right now nobody's managing it because it was in WestJet, and when COVID hit, and it impacted WestJet so badly, yeah, it's currently out of commission. We're currently looking for a new location to put it. But so that was one thing that we started, which is currently on pause. And then in this blogging adventure, I've learned a ton, and I've connected with some amazing people who, again, all have skill sets and different things. And so we created, four of us created The Bench. So it's wearethebench.com. The idea is that we have a bench of resources that are really good at what we do and have other people on our bench on a contract basis who are very good at what they do. So as a small business, and we cater specifically to small businesses and small business budgets, and we provide whatever support it is that you need. So as an example, 3 of our clients are in the food industry, and they needed help building their social media accounts and needed help with a strategy around social media. And so myself and amazing, absolutely talented virtual assistant work on those accounts together. Some people, especially within the restraints of COVID, needed to really pivot fast into an online e-commerce situation. So we have a web developer and a web designer, and he works on with those clients. We have another one of our partners is a absolutely brilliant videographer, photographer, content creator extraordinaire. And so if you need some professional looking content, then he's the one that works with you on that. We do Google ads, we do like everything a small business box, or it's like a box of what you need as a small business owner, and you just pick and choose. Like for the next month I need support with my Instagram account, right, or I need support building a website, or I need support with accounting. We even do accounting because we have bookkeepers. So that just organically grew out of just people coming to me and saying, you're really good at this, I need help. Or, who does your videos? They're really great. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to put all these people in one place. Yeah. And they, any business owner funnels through, we assess what you need, and then connect you with the resource that you need to get the work done.
I think that's brilliant, especially right now. There are so many people who, we're very much in a kind of freelance gig economy.
Yes.
And so many people who have found themselves having to pivot in the last year. And so they don't necessarily have the budget or the room or the the ability to hire employees, but they need help. And
exactly.
How do you find help? Like, this is the question I get asked all the time. Like, how do I find a person to do this? How do I find somebody to help me with this? And it's not even so much like they know what they need help with. They just don't know how to find the person. So to put them all in one place and be able to almost like
it's leveraging. It's also, again, leveraging the relationships and trust. So people trust me and they can see the work that I do, and it all comes down to building relationships and trust. Like, nobody's Googling and finding us for that type of work. It's all a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. And I'm so happy to be so well connected in our entrepreneur community here. So, and I mean, this isn't a business where, we want to grow it to a, $1 billion. Like, that's not the goal. This was more like a passion project where I wanted to be able to support primarily Canadian. We do have one American client right now, but to support these Canadian small businesses and really, especially in these hard times, and help them survive. So it really became more of a passion project, which is how all of these businesses seem to start.
I like, you're speaking to the choir here.
Yeah. But I'm also, like, as much as I'm a bleeding heart and want to help and support everyone I can, my time's also really valuable.
You need to get paid. Yeah.
And you do need to get paid for the work that you do. So it's finding that balance. And so that wearethebench.com ended up being where we landed on that.
Yeah, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes for any of you
Sure.
who are looking for a little bit of extra help. I love that you are focusing on the Canadian market, because I find that for a lot of us who run small businesses, everything is very US focused, and there's nothing wrong with that. You learn a lot from that, but there are things that are a little different up here, and sometimes you just need somebody who gets the little differences. So
yeah, the differences. And honestly, when it comes down to your bottom line, it's right now it's cheaper to keep your money in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then with my American client, they automatically get a 30% discount.
You get a great discount. Yeah.
So even for American clients, it's actually a win to use us in Canada because of the exchange rate. So yeah.
Yes. So okay. So you've got your yogurt franchise, which so I have to ask a question because I've never heard of this. Is it like an actual robot? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So it looks like, okay, in like movie theaters, they look like vending machines. They have the claw and they pick up the stuffed animals.
Mm-hmm.
Picture that.
Okay.
Except instead of a claw, it's a robotic arm that was actually designed by a guy that worked at NASA. And this was his side hustle. He wanted to look at how can he use robotic technology beyond spacecraft. So he created a yogurt robot. And and so it looks like a big box. It's clear, and then it's got this robotic arm. And then you select your flavor, and then we have all the toppings in there, and it just goes and grabs what it needs, and then pours it, and then puts it down a little chute and gives you a spoon.
Neat. So you don't actually have to staff it. I mean, obviously, like you said, it breaks down and it's got technical issues. But
yeah. So there's no staff, and it's all monitored remotely. So we monitor obviously the temperature because yogurt.
Right.
Yep. So we monitor temperature remotely through an app. All of our payment is done. It's cashless, which nowadays is really not a big deal. Nobody carries cash anymore. It's cashless. And if something we have like notifications set on stock, so we would get a text if Oreo crumbles were getting low, which is like an okay text to get these days. If that was my biggest problem in the day, that was a good day. Again, when I'm evaluating what I want to get involved in with that, it was very limited hands-on. That was more of a monetary investment and pretty minimal time investment, but some of my other endeavors are like way more time and sweat equity and not as much capital is required. So can only take on so many of those like high capital. And that's also why there's 6 of us. So 3 couples. So there's 6 of us involved.
Right. Okay. I just had to get a vision of it in my head, what it looked like.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you've also started an urban veggie farm, and this is like I am a very avid gardener, so this one super interesting to me. I want to hear about this because I think this is pretty new. I only saw a glimpse of it I think last week on your Instagram. I was like, oh, another cool thing.
So again, my role in it is more about building the relationships with our potential vendors, and I'll explain that in a minute, and the social media. And then the other partners are actually doing the gardening and doing the work. So during COVID, when everybody was baking bread, I always joke, everyone's learning how to bake bread. We were like, how can we grow veggies inside? Because I don't want to go to the grocery store. I don't want to, So we started looking into urban farming and vertical farming, and again, started as a hobby. And then we just wanted to try so many new things that we ended up with like a huge surplus of product and basically had to start selling it. So then because of the yogurt business and because of the other things we've all collectively done in life, we already knew how to get the licenses, how to get the approvals, how to do all of that. So that became very easy. Through food blogging, I have made so many connections with local ranchers and growers and food product creators. And again, I saw this as a way to showcase these products and get them in front of the potential customers. So I thought, well, if we're going to be growing some of these greens and selling them, what if we, reach out to some of these other growers and create veggie boxes? So that's coming this summer with mostly Alberta grown produce. Some of it we'll bring in from other places all within Canada. And this is a unique veggie box. So you're going to get things that you don't typically get in a grocery store. So this is going to be like your purple asparagus. So we have an asparagus farm that's, 10 minutes from my house. I have a garlic farm friend. So we're getting some really great Alberta grown garlic. And then what we'll start to do is I'll get to unite my recipe creation and veggie distribution passions, and we'll do themed boxes. So you'll get a recipe and then all the ingredients to make that one recipe. So, I want to do like salsa kits. So I want to use all Alberta grown produce to give you a kit to make fresh salsa at home. So that's kind of where that's going. It's evolving, right now it's in concept mode, and we now have a website, and we can do orders online, and we're just planning how do we do delivery services and all of that. But yeah, we have a farmer's market spot in the summer, but for right now, it's just come to my house.
Yeah.
This is where I'd like to see things go. Whether it actually gets there, I'm not so sure yet.
Right.
But it's just, again, a passion. I really want to connect people to local farmers and create easy, delicious food in your own house. That's the underlying premise of it all.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So you've got a lot of different things going on, and I am really curious, like you've said already that a lot of them, well, all of them have kind of come out of a hobby or a passion. So how do you evaluate an idea before you decide to move it from a hobby to a business? Do you have something you go through in your head, or is it gut, or is it a little bit of both?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. So honestly, what I do is when we think of an idea or something comes up, do I have resources to support this? So do I know a person who knows a person who knows a person that can do this? So with the veggie stuff, I know tons of local growers. And so it became, that's a no-brainer. But had I come up with that idea and not known where to go or how to, tap into wholesale veggies, I probably wouldn't have gone any further with it. So it usually comes down to, do I know a person who knows a person who knows a person? Do I have the capacity, time, money, otherwise in that season to take it on? So I've had to say no to some really cool things that I would love to do, but the time requirement was just, it was too much for what I had in terms of capacity. So usually it's that. And then does my gut feel like there is a need? Is there a niche? Is there enough customers to actually make this profitable? Because, you have to make money at these things, or else it truly is just a hobby. So,
exactly.
So if I feel like the return on investment is, way too long, or, the cost to acquire a customer in that niche is too much, I'll pass on something like that. And at the end of the day, it's got to be something that I genuinely am interested in and I love, because that's just, I don't know, that's just woven into me now. Like I have to be excited about it, or
and I get that.
Or I don't do it.
And if you follow Steph on her Instagram account, this is one of the things I love about your Instagram account, is that your passion for what you do comes through. And what I find really interesting, and we'll talk about this because this is partly a business podcast, is that you actually do a fair amount of selling on your Instagram account, but it never feels like I'm being sold to. Because you're so excited about what you're talking about. Like I'm thinking like your super cubes and your meal prep dishes that you use and all those things. And generally when you're talking about them, you're sharing affiliate links and things like that. And yet it never feels like I'm being, and I am super sensitive to being sold to, just because, when you work in the kind of fields that we work in, you know all the stuff going on in the background, how it works, right? So you're very sensitive to it, but I never feel that from you. And I think if you're looking for to see how to sell in a very organic, honest way, Steph's Instagram account is one to check out, particularly her stories, because that's where you do a lot of it. And it's comes across as like you're super passionate and super excited about what you're doing, and people respond to that.
Thank you. And that comes at a cost, because I say no to a lot of partnerships, a lot, because I really feel like aligning with the brands that I truly, truly, truly love, truly use. So, the super cubes of the world, who are now very good friends of mine. So that does come at a cost, because I turned down a lot of potential paid sponsorships because it either doesn't align or it's too much. It's too much. And I really, really only promote things that I truly use, love, like, and I truly think you need them if you want to do this type of work or do this type of prep and planning and stuff. So, but I take that as a huge compliment. Thank you, because I feel like, selling things is not an easy task to do. I think, especially as women, it's something we struggle with.
Yeah.
And putting, our value out there. And that's still something I'm learning. Even this week, I negotiated a partnership deal and way undersold myself. But it's a constant learning curve.
It is. And I think you're right. As women, we tend to shy away from it. And I think we're just not hardwired to sell, and yet we are very hardwired to share, I think.
And buy.
Yes. And we've all done that. You buy like a super cute pair of shoes, or you get your hair done at like the most amazing salon, and you want to tell all your friends,
yeah.
And it's very, and you don't think of that as selling, but really you're selling that person's services to somebody else.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's so much easier to do it when you are genuinely excited and passionate about the thing you're talking about. And we've all done it. So yeah, so now you've got all these things, like $1 million question here. Mm-hmm. How do you do everything in a day?
Well, I don't do everything in a day. That's the start. From a tactical perspective, in the morning, I look at what I would like, my wish list. This is everything. So a to-do list and a wish list are very different. So I have a wish list. It's very long. And then I have an actual to-do list. So I look at how many hours I actually have to work on certain things. I create a top 3. These are the 3 things I have to accomplish today. Anything else is bonus. I don't set my expectations. I've learned to bring my expectations down, that what I can accomplish in a day is a to-do list, not a wish list. I have the most amazing supportive people around me, not only for, help with childcare, that I have tons of amazing support for that. A very supportive spouse who's also an entrepreneur, so he gets it. He really gets it, that me working on my computer, at night watching TV is just a norm now, I guess.
Yeah.
And getting help, like if that means hiring a cleaner once a month. I just find efficient ways to do things. Like I don't go to the grocery store. I do everything online. I just find the efficient ways to do things. I don't know. It just comes so natural to me, I think. And I've always done a million things at once. I've always been the person that, went to school full time, but also had a job, but also volunteered. I'm just conditioned for it.
I think sometimes
I wish I was helpful.
I found this in university. I went to university full time and worked almost full time. And it was my brain's way of, because I'm a procrastinator. Like if I have free time, I'll just do nothing. So by keeping my schedule very full, it forced me to stay on track because I didn't have time to waste. So you can only do that for so long though before you burn out.
So, and that's actually where, once I stopped doing that fully, that's where my mental health issues started to spring up, because I finally had time to exhale and transitioning to full entrepreneurship and my website and, being out in the internet and getting criticized and all of that. There was a huge mental health component that ended up coming with that,
yes,
which is, a daily battle. But yeah, just I surround myself with amazing people. I have phenomenal core group of friends who, I have personal friends who know nothing about blogging, and then I have blogging friends that I can lean on when, the Pinterest algorithm completely hates me and I get 0 traffic from there now and my income's in half, and they understand what that means. And then I have my friends where I'm like, my kid won't leave me alone and I'm so stressed. And just, friends, family, that's key for me.
Yeah, I think that's something we don't talk enough about. I mean, you've been very open with your mental health and your anxiety challenges, but there's a huge component that kind of gets lost in all this. And that is just understanding how incredibly important it is to have those support networks in place, or to build a network if you don't have one. And it is not a failure to hire a housekeeper.
Oh my God, no.
Or we can't do all that. And you also twigged on another component of it, and that is just when you have a business that requires you to be out there, whether it's on the internet or social media, there's a lot that comes with that. People can be very unkind, plays on you. And I think you're starting to see more and more. I've noticed this particularly in YouTube, but also in the blogging world, where a lot of content creators are just saying, I need to step back because this is just not healthy for me the way it's going right now. And I think we need to talk more about that, because it's a huge thing, and there's nothing wrong with saying I need space, or I need to step back, or I need to go do something else. You've spoken about this on your social channels, and you know, what are some of the things that you do to help you manage your mental health and your physical well-being?
So first of all, the very beginning of my mental health challenges was calling what it was. That was really hard for me. I didn't even recognize what I was going through as anxiety. So, and anxiety manifests itself differently for different people. And so for me, it was constant nightmares. I wasn't sleeping. And when you don't sleep, you don't function. Like any new mom or new parent will tell you that. And that's what it was. And that's what it was feeling like. But I wasn't trying to keep a baby alive to keep me going. It was really detrimental. I developed forms of agoraphobia. So I would be anxious if I was out where there was lots of people, which is very weird because I'm very social.
Yeah.
So I would go to a hockey game or a concert and my body would I'd faint.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. And I didn't know what that was. Like my body it was a full visceral reaction. I had no ability to stop it, and I was having panic attacks. And so first of all, going to my doctor and learning that I actually had a generalized anxiety disorder was the first way of coping, because I just thought I was going crazy. I couldn't understand why my body was reacting like this. So calling what it was, and then working with my physician to get on a medication that could help me. And honestly, I think that has been the number one saving grace for me, was finding something that I'm still an anxious person. I still have anxiety, but now it's manageable. So instead of escalating to a point where I faint or have a panic attack, I can bring myself down. And I think, again, like number one thing I did to manage my anxiety was adjust my expectations of myself and of others. So I was putting myself up to these ridiculous expectations. Now I see they're ridiculous. At the time, I didn't. And when you're never meeting those ridiculous expectations, as a type A person, I find, it was causing anxiety. But I was putting all of these deadlines and everything in my head to be productive and keep up with all the other food bloggers who are producing so much content. And, you know, as an example, or the other parents who, you know, were raising their kids way, quote unquote, better than I was. And it was just adjusting my expectations. Like, I don't need to produce X posts a week. I don't have to, you know, put my kid in 17 things. We can select the 2 things she really wants to do. So just doing that inner work. And yeah, it was all me trying to figure out what I could handle and what I couldn't. And yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah, and part of that is just a learning process. I see a lot of younger entrepreneurs and creatives and content creators who they just don't have the experience to necessarily recognize the signs within themselves, and it can lead them down a dark path. And I think that's just something that when you're young, you don't pick up on it as quickly, or you don't know yourself as well to know what your rhythms are. Yeah. So all that to say that, you know, you got help, and so many people really resist getting help. I think there's still a lot of stigma around admitting that you can't do everything, or that your body's not coping properly, and we just don't want to acknowledge it, or we just think, oh, you know, I just need a good night's sleep and I'll be better, or whatever. Right?
Yeah. And you know, and that's why I am so vocal about it, because I get, just like how you said to me, how do you do it all? People think I am managing all these things, and I'm not managing it all. I do ask for help, and I surround myself with like-minded people who are going through similar struggles, and we can relate, and it's not something I sit with by myself. Yeah. And I think that's, if you are surrounded by people who are telling you to just get over things or that you're overreacting, then you need to put up some boundaries. Like those people are being toxic to your mental health. And as much as you love them and want them to understand you, they're just not ready to be there yet. And so I had to let go of people who thought maybe I was going crazy or I was overreacting. Like if I get told one more time I'm overreacting, like that is a trigger word for me. And so I just distance myself from people who do that and put up boundaries. And
yeah, I think that's a huge part of being a business owner is putting up boundaries. That's a big one, and it took me a long time to get comfortable with that. And
especially with social media.
Yes.
Like you don't have to respond to every comment because the algorithm thinks you need to.
No,
you don't.
You don't.
No.
Absolutely not. And I thought it was important that we talk about this because there is there's that whole hustle mentality, and that entrepreneurs really kind of grind themselves down and things. And it is really important to understand that nobody's doing this on their own, like ever.
No.
There's just no way to do it, because to do it all on your own, you would never sleep. You would be working 24 hours a day, and so it is,
and that's
really
not healthy. But our culture for so long has rewarded that.
Yes.
If you work hard, you are rewarded.
Yes.
But we need to shift that to work smart.
Yes.
Work smart
and hard together, and have like a boundary of when your day ends.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't need to respond to your customer emails at 3:00 in the morning.
No,
like you don't.
No. I actually get really worried when I'm dealing with a PR person or something who's in Ontario, which is 3 hours ahead of me, and I'm getting a message from them at like 8:00 at night, and it's like, your company needs to put some boundaries in place. I don't want to hear from you when it's 11:00 at your time. Like that sends a bad message about who you work for. You know?
And I've done things like so one of my triggers for anxiety was the email and the notifications. So I don't have my work email on my phone.
Me either.
When I check my email intentionally.
Yes.
And the notifications for Instagram and Facebook are all turned off. So I don't get the red dots. So I don't feel like there's something I need to go address. It's like when I want to go in and look and go in and read, I will do those things.
Yeah, I mean, all those apps and notifications we get, like there's a physical reaction in our brain to those.
Oh, especially when you're type A and you don't want to see any of the red dots ever. Like red dots were a trigger to me, and I was like, okay, no more red dots in my life.
you turn them off. You don't need to do that at all. 100%. I completely.
And it makes you more productive and more efficient, because instead of checking it compulsively every time you get an email, sit down and spend an hour and go through your emails, and then it's done.
Yeah. And how many times have we gotten distracted by a notification and then realized an hour and a half later that we haven't got anything actually accomplished that we wanted to accomplish?
Exactly. So that was a huge part of my mental health journey, was understanding what was triggering me and really understanding why. And for me, the notifications it was taking me down rabbit holes. It was messing with my productivity, which made me anxious. And seeing the red dots, like I just always wanted a clean, fresh, it's my mild OCD, I'm sure.
Yes.
I didn't
totally relate.
Yeah. So just that simple thing of turning off notifications was like magic, pure magic.
And for a day or two, you'll sort of worry that you're missing out, but then all of a sudden it's like you get to the other side of the mountain and you're just like, you don't even notice that they're gone.
And I enjoy things like Instagram a lot more now. Yeah. Because it's intentional, it's on my time, and I've decided that I want to go in and I'll interact with my comments a lot more positively. Yes. And with more energy, because I'm not like, oh, you interrupted me and now I have to deal with it. It's not like that at all. Now I really enjoy interacting on specifically on the Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where I spend most of my social media time.
Yeah, like you said, it's an intentional interaction, and that really changes your mindset around it.
Yeah.
So you've got all these businesses, and I'm sure there's many more percolating in your brain.
Always.
So how do you plan for the future around this? Like in terms of, do you kind of have a cap in your head of how many businesses you think you can be a part of, or are some of these designed to eventually sell? Like, do you have exit strategies for them? How do you kind of keep it manageable, I guess?
So right now I feel like I'm at a max, a
Right.
comfortable max. So until something gets removed off my plate, I'm at capacity. And in terms of exit strategy, I more have like exit ideas. So if 2020 had taught me, a type A extreme planner, anything, it's that you can't definitively plan for everything.
Yep.
And that is my number one takeaway from 2020 was that I have ideas and thoughts of what I'm planning, but they're loose. They're a lot looser than they ever were before. And that's also really great for my anxiety because now I don't have this expectation that, by
Mm.
2022, I'm going to sell this and, generate this much revenue from it. And I don't do that type of thinking anymore. I really embrace the balance of making it happen and letting it happen a lot more than I ever did. Whereas before I was really heavy on the like, I got to make this happen. I got to make this happen
Right.
because I have no idea in 2 years from now when I potentially might want to sell one of these endeavors what the economy will look like, what is going on in the world that I have no control of. And the Instant Pot magnet was a huge driver of that. Like there was no I need to create a product right now and sell it and let me just think of what I can do. It just came organically and it worked.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely leaning more to the side of go with the flow, embrace what comes. So I'm not really a good exit strategy planner, is what I'm saying.
I'm
I
not
wish I
either.
had better advice, but I don't.
But now I'm going through the process of selling a business. I wish I had
Mm-hmm.
focused on that a little more from the get-go. I
Interesting.
would have done
Okay.
things I would have done things differently. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
and like you said, you decide to sell a business and then a pandemic hits. Like
Right?
like there was nothing we could do about that, and it threw
No.
a huge wrench in our plans. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you plan, but also be flexible.
Yeah, flexible planning, and that's even how I meal plan. Like it just makes perfect sense.
But do you ever see yourself fully retiring, or do you think you're just going to be tinkering away at different projects until they
Oh,
cart you
yeah.
away?
Yeah, I don't think retirement will ever happen for me because I just love everything that I'm doing.
Yeah,
And honestly, like it is work and there are days where I'm exhausted, but every single day I go, I cannot believe I get paid to do this. I cannot believe I pay my mortgage taking pictures of food and I love it. I
I
like
know.
to this day, I cannot even believe it. And when I started my blog, I didn't even think it was possible, not even on my radar. So again, why I don't want to plan too far in advance because you're always learning and growing. And if somebody would have asked me 25, said to 25-year-old me, when you're 35, you leave this career that you are pining so hard for, and you will be a food blogger, I just would have fell over and died. Like there's just no way. There's no way.
Yes, I mean, when I was 25, there was no such thing as blogging.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to think that that would be like, if I think back, university, if somebody had told me where I would be in the future, I would have been like, what? What is that
No.
even? I've never even heard of that, So that's just it. You just never know. And I
And I'm
think
so excited to show the next generation that, and we're already starting to see that like gig economy is definitely more received and thought about nowadays. But like my daughter is 9 and she only like she lives with two entrepreneurs. She
yeah.
only sees that as an option right now. So I think that this next generation will just have a different approach. And even one of my VAs is 16 years old.
Oh wow.
16-year-olds know how to work
They
on
do. They know
social
how to.
media better than I do.
I
And
know it's funny.
so,
I watch some of my friends' kids and the creativity that comes out
mm-hmm,
of them through technology. This is what fascinates me about
mm-hmm,
it is picking up an iPad and creating a stop motion video.
yep,
It's just comes so naturally to them. It's not something, and whereas me, I would have had to go through like video editing classes and
mm-hmm,
understand all this equipment and software and everything, and they have a tool right there in front of them and they pick it up and they've made a little movie, and I think it's fantastic.
When I joined TikTok, I had to get my daughter to show me how to record a video and I called it splicing, but she didn't know what that meant. Like, I was like, how are you putting these series of videos together and how are you adding these transitions? And she was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but press this button and do this and do this. And I'm like, perfect. And so it was my 9-year-old that basically made me get on TikTok.
I remember having this conversation with my ex-boyfriend not too long ago. Him and his buddies, when they were in high school and a little bit in university, they were really into skateboarding, and they would make these skateboarding videos, but they would do them with VCR. Like, they would splice between VCRs. So they were like, oh my God. I know. And he just looks at the technology now and he's like, holy crap, like if we could have just done that on our phone, that would have been amazing. So I think it's fantastic. I love watching the creativity that they are able to put out there because of technology. And I just think it's really opened up so many doors that were not available to me when I was younger. And I think that's wonderful.
Like I had no idea that like a career in video editing or learning how to use the Adobe suite would be so valuable.
I know.
It's awesome. Yeah. And now I'm hiring those people to help me because I also don't want to learn how to do all of it. Well, I don't want to.
And I think that's an important thing to recognize is that, you don't have to. Like, there are people out there who can help you with those things. You've obviously recognized that because you have a company now of people who help people who don't want to do those things. And I think sometimes when you are a creative or an entrepreneur, you are much more the vision person, and you don't have time or the need or the want to learn all the different micro skills that are involved in that. So this is the thing. If you are sitting out there and you're thinking like, I have this idea, but I can't learn all the things. I can't do it. It's too hard. There's people out there who can help you. Like, you have the idea. That's the hard part.
And there's creative ways. Like, people that are starting businesses often say like, well, I don't have the money to hire this. I don't have the money to do this. Well, I did a lot of stuff on trade for a long time. Well, do you have a skill or have something like that I could use? Well, let's just trade, because neither one of us has the capital to
my hairstylist texted me just the other night. Her boyfriend is a chef and he needs help with his Instagram, and she's like, can you help him, and I'll trade you for your cut and colors.
Exactly.
I'll do that.
That's how it starts. So there's lots of different ways to do it. Or if you need support, like administrative support with a VA, well, do you have another, you share it with someone.
Yes.
You don't need to hire a full-time person.
No, you can hire somebody for a couple of hours a week or a couple of hours a month, and it doesn't have to cost more than, a couple $100. And even that might sound like a lot of money when you're starting out in bootstrapping, but you have to think
it's a balance. You have to spend money to make money.
You do. You really do. You have to. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but that $100 that you spend for 4 hours of somebody's time for a month frees up 4 hours for you to do something else that could help earn $150 that pays for that person, and you've got $50 extra in your pocket. I'm using very raw numbers here, but you get the idea. So
yeah. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. Like, I got to do it all myself. Nobody else will do it right. And and like learning to trust. And then when I first started hiring people that were actually like way better than me at certain things, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is smart. I should have done this a long time ago.
I spent the first part of my career in retail, and I had to learn very quickly when I was managing people that it was not my job to do all the things. And I'm very much a doer. But it got really kicked out of me by people higher up that is not your job. You have people to do that. Your job is to show them how to do it and give them the tools they need to do it. And it was one of the most valuable lessons I ever could have learned for being a business owner, because once I gave those people my trust and the skills and the resources they needed, and I saw what they did, I was like, well, wow, I would never have come up with that idea.
Exactly.
And they're doing it so much better than I ever could have done it. And but like you said, once you see that happen, you're like, oh, well, what else can I get rid of? Like,
yes. And then, so through that, you ask how I do it all, it's through that mentality that I can pick up another business or pick up a part of another business, because I've now shifted so much of this,
yes,
a certain scope that was taking a ton of my time. Like, as an example, Pinterest, I then trained someone to do it, and then she came with her own expertise, and now it's rocking. Like, my Pinterest is still dying a slow death right now.
That's probably more to do with Pinterest than your
exactly.
VA.
Oh, 1000%. But at least, that was a bad example. But
at least it's not, I mean, it's your headache in the sense that, Pinterest is weird and you can't rely on it anymore. But it's not your headache in the sense that you've got somebody else who is trying to figure out the algorithm for you and who is doing the work every day, and you're not ripping your hair out and just dropping it because it's so frustrating and you have other things to do, right? So
and that's how this bench was formed. It's now we've, let's use Pinterest as an example, but it's a bad one. But now that we've got it down and a rhythm and we're good at it, well, yeah, we just spent all this sweat equity figuring it out. So yeah, let us take your account now and apply everything we just learned for a couple $100 a month, take that off your plate, and then it grew from there.
Yeah. No, it's a great idea for a business. So, and there's a huge need for it out there. So we will definitely link to that in the show notes. But before we wrap up, Steph, tell us where people can find you online.
Oh man, I seem to feel like I'm everywhere online these days, but I spend most of my time on Instagram. My handle is Plan Addict. That's probably the most active place I hang out. If you are interested in learning more about my website too, www.mealplanaddict.com, and I'm sure you'll link all of this in the notes.
Yes, absolutely.
My Facebook community, if you just search Meal Plan Addict Community, you'll find the Facebook group. If you the bench stuff is not huge online because that's not how we want to market. Right. We're very word of mouth. So connect with me through email or one of those social channels. There is a website, wearethebench.com. And then for Awesome Veggie Co., that's on Instagram right now at The Awesome Veggie Co. So I seem to be everywhere online, depending on what hat I'm wearing and what day of the week it is. But you can always find me at one of those places.
And as you mentioned, we'll link to all of those in the show notes, so you can go check out all of Steph's different ventures and follow along and see where she's going with all of these different things. Steph, thank you so much for coming on today. It was so much fun to talk to you. I feel like I'm talking to a kindred spirit because I completely understand and relate to everything that you are going through. So it was just really important to me to bring somebody onto the show who could show all the different sides of being an entrepreneur, and in the true sense of the word, because I think entrepreneurs really are. I think all of us are serial entrepreneurs. Like, I think that's part of being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
But also to show that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. We don't do it all ourselves. We have help. There's a lot that goes on with all of it. So thank you so much. And thank you for being so honest about all of it.
Oh, I'm always honest, sometimes to a fault.
No, I think it's really helpful for people out there who are thinking about going down this path, or who already are down this path but are struggling and don't know if that's normal, because there's a lot that goes on with this. So yeah. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. So everybody, thanks so much for listening this week. We'll be back with another episode next week, and we'll talk to you all then. Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, Please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshelookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshelookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.